If you've tested with multiple companies, one of the things that you've inevitably come across is that you have some matches that are on both databases. And what you might see is that the amount of DNA that they share is different. Now, it's not necessarily vastly different, although sometimes it is, but it is a little different. So today I'm going to go over what this looks like and some of the reasons of why this may happen. We test with different companies and we get different amounts of shared DNA. So let's start with an example from my family. Now I'm going to use my dad and his siblings because I have several of them, and we've put their DNA on lots of different websites. And so we're going to look at this match named John. And the reason why I picked him is, one, because he actually shares a sizable amount of DNA with these people. I know the exact relationship, and he's also, of course, on multiple websites. So John shares 68 centimorgans with Gloria, 65 with Russ, 145 with Scott, and 75 with Marla when we're looking on Ancestry. Now we take this same DNA. Now, this is what's interesting, is this is the same kit over to GEDmatch, and Gloria, she shares 66.1. Russ shares 84.5. Scott shares 126.9. And Marla shares 66.1. Those numbers are different. If we take a look at the percentages, we can see that those percentages are actually a little bit all over. The high is a 30% difference, and Russ has more on GEDmatch than what Ancestry has. The low is Gloria. She only has about a 2.8% difference between Ancestry and GEDmatch. But then Scott and Marla have more than a 10% difference as far as the amount of shared DNA. Now, if we were looking at small matches, let's say 10 centimorgans or 20 centimorgans, then you could easily have some matches that may show up on Ancestry that when you go over to GEDmatch, they don't show up at all. It's 0. Or it might be doubled. Instead of 10 centimorgans, it's 20 centimorgans or 25 centimorgans. So when you get to smaller matches, these percentages differences can be quite different. Let's look at another example. This is Randy, and this is going to MyHeritage instead of Ancestry. Gloria has 50, Russ has 77, Scott has 137, Marla has 118, and Marianne has 127. But when we look on GEDmatch, we see Gloria has 34, Russ has 0. Remember, I just said that when we're at small matches, we might go down to 0, but this is one that's at 0 at 77. And Scott has 133, Marla is 125, and Marianne is 120. So we look at the percentages, and of course the high is 100% difference with my dad because it goes from 77 to 0. But even Gloria has a 30% difference in the amount of shared DNA between these two websites, while the other three are within 10% of what you would be expecting. I'm going to look at something even different, which is Ivy, and this is Randy's daughter. And so there's something that we want to be looking out for here. First off, on MyHeritage, Gloria shares 18, Russ is 52, Scott's 51, Marla's 43, Marianne is 52. But when we go to GEDmatch, Gloria goes to 0, Russ is at 72, which is curious because Russ was at 0 with Randy. So there must be something error-wise going on here, because Randy gave his DNA to his daughter, so it's impossible for Russ to match Ivy and not match Randy. Now you may say, well, what about through Ivy's mother? Well, it could be through Ivy's mother, except that we've checked that and they are not related as far distant as we can grow out 7 or 8 generations, to the fact that if Ivy was sharing 72 centimorgans with Russ and 0, Russ was sharing 0 with Randy, is just impossible. Particularly when we look at Russ's siblings that all share DNA with Randy and Ivy. So Scott shares 56, Marla 49, and Marianne 59. And we look at these percentages, and again, we have a few of these that are centered right around 10% difference, but there's one of these outliers that's 36%, and another one that is 100%. It goes from 18 to 0 in this case. All right, so why is this happening? Why can't all these companies get the right answer all the time? That's why you came to this video. Reason number one, there's always going to be multiple reasons. Each one of these companies is using a different SNP set. Even GEDmatch, which is not testing, they are only looking at a specific set of SNPs. And depending on what test you're using to upload to GEDmatch, you may have more or less SNPs in your overall set because of what they're looking at. Now, since we're looking at different SNP sets, where we say a match starts and ends is going to be different for each company because that SNP may be closer to the actual recombination point or further away from that actual recombination point. Likewise, some of the SNPs that might actually be different might be missing, in which case you might have a place where there's a bigger segment, but really should have been broken up into two segments because of some SNPs that are missing in that point. So that's reason number one. Now, reason number two, each one of these companies uses a different algorithm in order to calculate where these matches are, how many SNPs they need, and where the different parts of this is. So with matching other people, the algorithm is usually pretty simple, but it is still a reason. Remember, we saw that one case where my dad didn't match anything on GEDmatch with Randy, but he matched on MyHeritage. But then when we go to his daughter, my dad matches his daughter. So there's something missing there, and that probably has to do with the algorithm of how it's calculating what that match is. Reason number three, and this is what really feeds into the algorithm, is what criteria are we using? With GEDmatch, you can actually see and you can change the criteria when you're looking at matching. So for instance, how many SNPs do we have to make it a match? Is it 200? Does it have to be 500 to call it a match? What is the minimum centimorgans to be able to make that a match? How many SNPs have to be in between a no match and the next no match to call that whole thing a no match? So there's several different criteria that have to go into that algorithm to then tell where these matches are. So that is why all of these companies, even with the same people, even with the same test, if you just took the ancestry test and uploaded it to everybody and looked, you'd still see differences in the amount of shared centimorgan matches. Which leads us really then to the ultimate lesson we should learn from this. And two things. First off, test everyone. You can see here the fact that I had multiple siblings that are from the same family. I can find some of these matches, even though I might share 0 centimorgans with one of those people, the other people did show up. So test everyone you can. And test everywhere. Don't limit yourself to just one of these databases. Test with Ancestry, test with 23andMe, test or upload to Family Tree DNA and MyHeritage and GEDmatch. All of these databases, like I pointed out, they use different SNP sets, they use different algorithms, they have different criteria, and because of that, you're going to have different levels of matches with every single one of them. So if you haven't tested, then this Christmas season is actually a great time because there's going to be sales going on. Get some DNA kits for your close relatives, get them tested, and help your genetic genealogy. If you'd like to learn more about DNA, then watch this video up top. But if you're interested in something else genealogy related, watch this video down below. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and join FHF Extra for only $2.99 a month, where we provide even more videos and monthly webinars for you.